The Committee of Parole is reconvening at 10:47. Good morning, Mr. Seals. How are you?
All right, how are you?
Good, Mr. Seals. My name is Alvin Roche, and to my left is Mr. Anthony Marabella. To my right is Ms. Pearl Wise. Would you please give us your full name and your Department of Corrections ID?
My name is Raymond Luther Seals Jr. and my ID number is 486139.
Thank you, Mr. Seals. We're here for a parole hearing. Let me explain the process to you. I will read some information into the record. Once that information is in the record, we'll conduct a parole interview with you. At the appropriate time, we'll give Warden Falgu or Warden Ambo chance to make remarks, comments, or observations. At the very end, before we vote, we'll give you a chance to make a brief statement on your behalf, and then we'll vote. You understand the process?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Seals, your DOC number is 46139. Your
No,
currently
486139.
is that not what I said? 486139.
Yes, sir.
And you're currently 64 years old. You're a fourth felony offender. Your offense is armed robbery, and you were billed as an habitual offender in Caddo Parish on February 1st, 2005, and received a 60-year sentence. Your total sentence is 60 years. Your parole date is June 10th, 2023. You're not eligible for good time, and your full-term sentence, June 8th, 2063. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Is all that information correct?
Yes, sir.
Your case has been assigned to Mr. Marabella. Would you please answer Mr. Marabella's question?
Good morning, Mr. Seals. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Seals, how old are you, sir?
64,
And how long have you been in prison on these charges?
almost 20 years.
Where are you currently living? What is your living environment now? Where are you living at?
They call it TU. It's
Okay. Tell me what that is, as best you can explain it.
To me, it's for mental health patients. The psychiatrists are there, and the counselors, and they make regular rounds on the tiers we live on to talk to us if we need to talk and everything.
How long have you lived on that tier?
I'm not sure. I can't remember time like that, but it's somewhere around 7 or 8 years.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about your education. How far did you go in school?
10th grade, but I got my GED.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about this robbery in 2003 with the Pizza Hut. Tell me what do you remember about that?
I'm from Fort Worth, Texas. I went to Shreveport looking for labor work. I couldn't find any work after a couple of months, so I used up my time at the Salvation Army. You can only stay there 2 weeks, and so got out. I was really desperate, and I got a gun from a lady that worked at a bar, and I got drunk and I went in a Pizza Hut. Now, they charged me with armed robbery, but the way the pistol was used, it was supposed to be first-degree robbery, which is not even a crime of violence, because I didn't pull the gun, I didn't holler at anybody, I didn't tie anybody up, I didn't tell nobody get on the floor, and they even the Pizza Hut manager described the robber as soft-spoken and polite. But I did show her the handle of the gun sticking out of my pants, and I told her, this is a robbery, give me the money out of the cash register, and she did do that, and I left.
So you had a gun, you did in fact rob her, and you took her car, or took an employee's car.
Another employee's car.
Okay. Well, good. That's what the records show. That's pretty honest. I'm not going to argue with you over whether it was first degree robbery or armed robbery. But I appreciate you telling me that. Let's talk a little bit about your drinking. When did you start drinking?
When I was about 12 or 13 years old.
And what did you start drinking?
Sir?
What alcohol did you drink? Beer, whiskey, vodka, what?
Beer and wine.
Tell me how a 12, 13-year-old starts drinking beer and wine.
Friends of mine were doing it, and I was easily led at the time. On weekends, we were in a small town. There wasn't nothing else to do. We felt like anyway. And I'd end up, before I knew it, I'd done it again.
And how often would you drink?
Not very often back then.
All right. Now, can we both agree that you're an alcoholic?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when did your drinking really get serious that you were drinking pretty much every day, all the time?
When I was about 18, maybe 19.
And most of you've been arrested 12 times. Most of those have been drinking involved. Property, I think the only robbery was the armed robbery was this one here. Everything else was thefts and in drug, alcohol related problems. Did you ever use drugs?
Never.
Always drinking.
Yes, sir.
What about anger? Did you get angry when you drank?
That was pretty common, yes.
Tell me a little bit about your anger. What have you done while you've been in prison to address your anger?
Well, when I first got here, I really had a bad attitude because I knew I'd been falsely imprisoned because it was supposed to be first degree, like I said, and they made it armed. And they had me on the wrong psych medication at the time, so it didn't take much to make me angry. I had a pretty bad attitude at that time, but now they got me on the right psych medication. I hadn't had a write-up since I've been on it, which I think is either 6 or 7 years.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the you were in Cage Your Age, anger management, Cage Your Age, but you kind of quit going to those. Did you ever finish that program?
I went right up to the last because I expected to get a certificate, and they gave everybody one but me, and I couldn't figure out why. And I asked them,
okay, go ahead. Tell me what they told you.
I'm sorry. I asked them, and they said I didn't have enough hours, and I didn't believe it, but I guess they were right.
The records seem to suggest that your attendance was very sporadic. In other words, you went whenever you wanted to go, and you didn't go all the time. Those that got certificates probably went a sufficient number of times to be entitled to the certificate. That's what our records reflect. I'm not going to argue with you, but that's kind of what our records seem to reflect. It appears that has been sort of an issue with you, maybe kind of not following up on things for some reason. Why is that?
Well, I did get a substance abuse. They're supposed to have that certificate there. And when in 94 in Texas, I went through a 9-month program called Kyle New Visions. And it was anger management and behavior modification. For 9 months, it was 40 hours a week. And I got all those certificates plus a 600-hour horticulture diploma. I got anger management, substance abuse, life.
When was that?
I can't remember dates,
That was
but
back in the 80s when you were in Texas, right? Fort Worth?
Sir,
That was back in the 80s when you were in Fort Worth, is that right?
I thought it was around 94. I don't know.
Well, it might have been. It might have been. You've got several times you were in prison in Tennessee and Texas, and maybe 92. Were you in Dallas County? You went to jail for 8 years.
Yes, sir.
That time, is that where we're talking about?
I think so, but it was after I got out of prison for one of the 2 times in Texas.
I hear you. But even after you did all of those things, you went back to drinking, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, that was before you committed this robbery.
I'm sorry.
Okay, let me back up just a little bit, because maybe this may be something that will be helpful to you. Maybe it will not be helpful to you. I don't. I've been a lawyer for over 50 years. I was a judge. I was a DA. I was a defense lawyer. What you just described, walking into that place, showing that girl your gun handle, and taking that money, is armed robbery, clearly under the law. So I don't know where you got it ought to be first-degree robbery. So I'm hoping maybe that might put your mind at ease that you weren't falsely charged. That is an armed robbery. When a person goes in and shows they have a gun, that's an armed robbery. You don't have to put the gun in their face. All they have to do is know you got a gun. Now, if you got your hand in your pocket and you say, I got a gun, that might not be armed robbery. That could be first-degree robbery, where you pretend you have a gun. But she saw the gun. She saw the handle. So I'm not going to argue with you. I'm just hoping that seems to be a hang-up with you after you've been in jail for 20 plus years, still concerned about that. Hopefully that can put that issue to rest, okay? Now, it's my understanding that it has been suggested on a number of occasions that you can move out from the TU unit into a less restricted area. You don't seem to want to do that. Why is that?
Because 3 times I tried that, and all 3 times they put me on jobs I couldn't do. I have scoliosis and I have 5 other things wrong with my spine, and I can't bend at all. And some days it's even hard for me to walk. And they put me on jobs that required a lot of bending. I couldn't do it.
I follow you. Okay. Now, you're right. You haven't had a write-up in about 4 or 5 years, but you have had lots and lots of write-ups for fighting. Why?
Because when I'd be living in cells, inmates would come up to my cell wanting to buy my pills from me. And when I tell them I wouldn't sell it, they would cuss me out. And most of them would just leave it at that. But some of them would throw human waste on me. And they write both inmates up for that.
All right.
That happened several times.
Let me ask you this, what medication are you on? Do you know what you're taking?
Wellbutrin and, Halidol and Benadryl. I'm not sure of the other one. There's about 15 of them.
Okay, let me ask you this, if you were to get out, where would you live?
I want to go to my hometown, Fort Worth, Texas, but they said I'd have to stay here in Louisiana until I could get transferred over there. I would hope there would be a halfway house that would take me, because I've lost touch with most of my family. And if
So you don't have any family in Fort Worth that you could go live with?
I've lost touch with them. I'd hope that I could live at a halfway house and get my 2 checks I'm eligible for started: food stamps, government housing, and Medicare and Medicaid. I had 3 social workers tell me in my hometown I've been supposed to be getting that all my life. So I just never, it takes about 8 months over there in Fort Worth to get that. And so I never went to you got to go to a bunch of classes. I never would go to all those classes, so I never got my check started. That's why I was desperate to rob a Pizza Hut. I was broke. If I'd have got those checks started, I'd have never been desperate. And that's what I'm gonna do if I can get out.
Well, isn't it, would you agree with the statement that probably your drinking had a lot to do with you're not going to classes and you're not being able to do the things that you needed to do back then?
That could be the problem. I didn't really think so, but I guess that could be a lot of it.
Well, let me ask you this, what would be your plan to stay sober once you get out?
I'd have to stay involved in church and AA.
Tell me about AA. What do you know about AA?
I've been a couple of different times, and it's just like they say it is. You quit going to the meetings and it's not going to be long till you're drunk. And they were right. Everything they say, everything they teach in there is right. So if you go to the meetings, it is very possible to stay sober.
And when did you go to a few meetings? You said you'd gone to a few meetings. When did you do that?
I can't even come close to remembering dates. So I don't really know.
Are you in prison or were you outside?
Oh, and I was outside.
And Gordon, what can you tell us about Mr. Seals?
Well, looking at his history here, he has been in dormitory setting sporadically. Last time he was in a dormitory was in August of 2008. From that time forward, he's been in a cell block. So that has limited his ability for programming, obviously. He has in progress right now housing through LDH, mental health housing, if he is granted this parole. Also, we can apply for SSI and other federal funding for him, but we have to do it within 90 days, I believe, of his release date. So therefore, we would need, in fact, a release date.
Thank you.
Before we get more, can we hear from the nurse from the TPU unit?
My name is Kenyatta Claiborne. I work on the transitional unit, which is a unit for our more severe mentally ill offenders. I come to know Raymond Seals within the last 4 years. I've worked on this unit continuously for 4 years since I've been employed here at LSP. Starting out, Mr. Seals did join my groups. I offer therapeutic groups, psychotherapy groups. I offer these groups 2 to 3 days a week for the different offenders that's housed on the unit. Initially starting out when I began here, my employment, Mr. Seals did attend groups, but as you all stated earlier, sporadically, he'll come and go. I know that he has had some health concerns during the 4 years that I've been on the unit. So I know for that has been some reasons why he has not attended groups. When he did participate. Pretty quiet gentleman, but when prompted, he would participate during those times.
Ms. Wine has no questions. Mr. Seals, would you like to make a closing statement?
Yes, sir.
So tell us why you think we should vote to grant your early release.
Because since I have been on the right psych medication, Halidol and Wellbutrin, I've not had any write-ups, and I think my attitude has improved 100%. And I know that when I get out, if I get granted parole this time, I would get my benefits started. 3 social workers told me that I'm not eligible for one, but I'm eligible for 2 checks, one for having scoliosis and the other for being mentally challenged. And I would be able to get on my feet pretty well if I was stay with a social worker and get those benefits started, and I'd have steady income, so I would never be desperate again to have to think about doing any crime. And I'd, like you say, stay involved in AA and stay in it this time, and especially church.
Thank you, Mr. Seals. I have one concern, Mr. Seals. You don't have any family in Texas, and you would love to go to Texas. And unless you have an immediate family member, they probably will not approve an interstate compact. You have no family in Louisiana. Once that transition housing expires, where are you going to live?
Well, I'd have those 3 social workers told me I get 2 checks, food stamps, free government housing, and Medicare and Medicaid. That would be where I'd live, in that government housing.
Thank you, sir. Is the panel ready to vote?
Yes, I am.
Mr. Marabella?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Seals,
Mr. Roche, this is Warren Fowler, real quick. Look, I'm speaking with Ms. Sturgeon and his housing, just so you guys have this information. The housing would be long-term. The transitional, he would still be able to maintain housing through LDH for low income.
okay.
All right?
Thank you, Warden. Mr. Seals, I appreciate your honesty. You've been pretty honest with me. I've got a concern, and my concern is that you want to get out, and I appreciate the fact that you want to get out, and you don't really have a good plan for sobriety. You talk about maybe going to an AA meeting. You haven't been to an AA meeting in over 25 years, 24 years, you haven't had very much substance abuse while you've been there. You're not very motivated to do things. I mean, you don't go to your group sessions when you're right there. I'm very worried about you're not doing the things that you need to do when you get out. You're going to need a lot of help, and you're right. If you can get 3 social workers to work with you, if you can get housing, if you can get some checks and Medicare and Medicaid, all of those things are nice, but they're not going to do the things for you. They're not going to do the things that you need to do. You know, you could very easily spend that money on beer and whiskey and wine. And that's what I'm concerned about. I think you need to spend a little more time on doing the things you need to do while you're there. And if I'm on the panel when you come back here and I see that, look, you're trying, you're working hard, you're going to your groups, you're doing the things you're supposed to do, then I would be willing to take a chance on it. But right now, I'm just not. So my vote would be to deny.
Ms. Wise.
Mrs. Seal, I just appreciate how you spoke up for yourself today. I think you know that you could improve, but I'm just hopeful for you. My vote is to grant after you obtain a residence plan through LDH is approved by P&P, and that the department gets, get your SSI started. That is my vote. I'm just hopeful for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wise. Mrs. Seals, I will tell you what would make my mind up for me to grant you. If you would join general population again and live among the offenders and cohabitate and communicate with the offenders for a period of time, it will show me that you can go back into a regular society and cohabitate with everyone in your community. What worries me is that you've been in a isolated, controlled situation for 8 years, and you refuse to leave that environment because you are maybe frightened to go and live among the general population. And until you can experience living with others in a general population, I think that you will not succeed when you're released, based upon poor supervision history, based upon a history of alcoholism, based upon poor supervision history. I'm going to deny your request, but give you the advice that you need to get back into the general population, get used to communicating and co-mingling with other individuals in preparation for your release. But until that happens, I can't vote for you. Mrs. Seal should receive 1 vote to grant your request, 2 votes to deny your request. Your request for early release has been denied. You have a good day.